there, guys. It is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Hope you're catching my hat there with believemeachieve.com. I'll let you guys see that again. It's believemeachieve.com. Just wanted to let you guys see that. Do want to thank you for being here, whether you're here at 11:40 p.m. or maybe you're here at 11:45 p.m. or 11:45 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. or 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. It doesn't really matter. Thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate that. And we're talking this whole week about how to resolve conflict. We're on Series 3, Show 17. And conflict is something I think that can get a lot of people, how can I say, I guess confused. So I wanted to share this with you and let you guys know that conflict is something that we all have to deal with, but it's how we choose to respond. Okay? How we choose to respond that makes it the difference. And I know you're probably saying, John, it's hard. And I know it can be hard at first. So this whole week is about that. But tonight's granular topic is about harmony amidst conflict, navigating organizational dynamics. Series 3, Show 17, Episode 3. First thing is, ladies and gentlemen, what is organizational dynamics, and how does that work? Like, how do we even fit into that? I know that can be a little bit crazy, but I want you to know that. So I want you to also know that there's a lot that can be done. Okay. A lot that can be done. And so if we understand what's going on, then I think that's a big, big thing. Okay. I think it's a huge thing if we can understand what is going on. Okay. You might be wondering, how does an organizational dynamic work? And I think the best way it works is by just getting, I guess, an understanding of how something's supposed to work, how a dynamic is supposed to work. I think that's really the bottom line. So let's talk a little bit about this thing, which is the organizational dynamic, okay? And so when we think about task conflict, because that's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how task conflict is, and so really, it's task conflict, and maybe you've wondered what it is, and there's lots of different things about task conflict. The essence is about organizational dynamics, which is what we're talking about today. And so, maybe it's something because, two people are going a certain way and it goes against the flow. That can be what it is. So navigating organizational policies, I don't know about you, but that can be just like terrible. And you might be saying, gee, I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to do anything. But it's something that I believe everyone has to be aware of. Okay. Everyone needs to be aware of this. And if everyone's aware of it, then I believe it'll make life a little bit easier. It'll make life just a little bit easier for you. And knowing that no dynamics in a company are easy. They're not. Whether we're talking about the dynamics, whether we're talking about the organizational structure, it can be a real challenge. Having the right people, having the right resources, and then how about the distribution, which is really critical, debate. Who do we do what with? Who do we give this to? Who do we not do this with? Like, how do we do that? There's the point of contention, uncovering the myriad of perspectives on how to effectively assign the resources right without making it a personality game, you know? Um, and then there's power dynamics. The fact that you have to have a balance of power within organizations. Maybe you don't want to follow somebody because you feel that you're always right. But when we navigate task conflict, the biggest thing is we can't seem to move past where we are now. You have one person, you have another person, and for whatever happens, for whatever reason, you just can't navigate past anything. And that might be something that you'd be like, oh, John, I have no idea what that is. It's not hard, but it's something you have to understand. Okay? And if you don't understand it, it actually gets worse. It actually gets worse. And the reason it gets worse is because you get so frustrated that you don't understand anything. You don't understand anything. And if you don't understand anything, then how are you ever going to move forward? Right? How is that ever going to happen? And I think the reason that we get stuck is because we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. Like, really, I have no idea. And so, if we could just maybe think about something from the other person's perspective for just a moment. And I know that's not easy. But it's possible. It definitely is possible. And I know you're probably saying to me, John, I don't quite get it. But understanding somebody else is important. And if you understand something, it makes things a lot easier. A lot easier. Okay. That's really the most important thing. And maybe you're trying to push on that struggle, right? You're trying to push on that whole struggle. But for whatever reason, you're just not able to. Okay. And it's something that I think a lot of people want to push forward, but they feel they can't. They feel they can't. And so that's probably the thing I believe that's going to get you to maybe make the change. Think about the dynamics of who you are, where you're going, what's happening. And then what I want you to do is think about how you could move forward. How you could move forward. And it's not a hard thing, ladies and gentlemen, to move forward. But I got to tell you that it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens overnight. And the reason I say it doesn't happen overnight is because it is something that I believe everyone wants. Everyone wants it, okay? But for whatever reason, they get hung up with the fact of the company's dynamics, okay? They get hung up with the company's dynamics. And the company's dynamics are not meant to cause a problem, but sometimes they do because of the challenge environment, okay? That's why there's such a problem. It comes from clashing. Maybe it's something that people, believe that something should be a certain way, and because they don't want to entertain it, it's like taken personally. So, task conflict is when you have something and you can't move forward. It's two parties. I can't move forward. because they have a difference of opinion on behaviors or attitudes on how we should bring a task to completion. Or forget completion, how we should even move forward in the task. And I think that's a really big thing for a lot of people. And it's a big nut for people to understand. It's a big nut. But if you could put yourself in terms of the other person's interest, you would be really, really amazed. Really amazed. And that's something that I believe everyone has the potential to do. Everyone. But task conflict can tear apart relationships. It can tear apart companies. It can do so many things, ladies and gentlemen, and the task doesn't get done. And the reason the task doesn't get done is because personality conflicts, the fact that everyone needs to be right all the time. Task conflicts can even happen in your own personal lives. Maybe it happens within your own family dynamic or your friends, or it can happen when you're volunteering somewhere. Crucial resources, distribution of them, and doing things in a way that's going to be for the greater good of all concerned. So we've talked about a lot today. We talked about conflict. We talked about the organizational dynamics because that's where task conflict comes from. That's where it starts. Task conflict. And in task conflict, we have things like navigating organizational policies, and we have things like the crucial resource distribution debate. Okay? We have those things. But then we also have the perpetual battle over, is this person right? Is that person right? And is that perspective going to shape the future of the organizational decision making? How do we know what perspective we should be on? Well, I think it comes down to looking at things methodically, but looking at things factually. So we want to get the heart out of this. Okay. We want to look at things logically and figure out, is this the best move? How do we handle power dynamics? You have to be very delicate with this because if you don't handle them correctly, you can really end the situation. I'm going to share one with you without giving all the personal details so we don't expose the guilty or the innocent, right? I was working with someone a few days ago, and I'm going to give you a different date so it doesn't, obviously people can't figure it out. And I was helping someone with something, and I had just finished something. And before I got there, I mentioned that I had done something. And the thing that was interesting was I got a response like, "Oh, well, okay, well, that." I got basically a response like, "Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Let's just work on this." And I don't know if the person realized how rude they were being to me. Let's not. Okay, that doesn't matter. Let's just work on this. And I was a little hurt. First, I was like, "Did that person actually say that it doesn't really matter?" And I was like, gee whiz. So I just didn't say anything. And then I was helping with something. And then they kind of had I'll call it a watchdog to come over and basically police what I was doing to make sure I was doing my job, which is a little bit insulting. And had a conversation with the person about some different things, my podcast and stuff. And they got a little bit how can I say, defensive when I shared the success of my podcast. I wasn't doing it to brag. I was just sharing and happy about it. They had a podcast too, but then right away they told me they had several million people following them. I don't know if that was really true. And, I don't really care. But what happened these few days ago is that when that person said to me, well, John, that really doesn't matter. Let's just work on what we have to work on. And I almost wanted to say, like, did you blank and really say that to me? And then they didn't even try to soften it. They basically just went on that whole thing. And then when I'm trying to get everything all finished, I'm being told that I'm taking too much of their time. I don't know. I was very dismayed in the way I was treated. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, ladies and gentlemen, but I share this with you because it's something that I experienced. Okay, it's something that I feel um, impacted my life for a few moments, at least. Okay, but a lot of people think that their stuff is more important than everybody else's. I mean, you at least got to be somewhat interested, right? But no, it's like, well, I basically got, I was sharing something that was pretty important to me. And I said, well, that doesn't really matter. Let's just work on what we have to. And I didn't know if they really knew what they were saying or if they were being that brazen on purpose. Like, were they really being that selfish? Or was it that they didn't know what they were saying? And I have to believe that they did know what they were saying. And I have to believe that it was a case of, I'm more important than you right now. I'm not going to say that, but the fact that I told you that, well, that doesn't really matter, that was rude. That was very rude. And those are the kinds of things, ladies and gentlemen, that would make me almost want to walk out when dealing with a client. But I always stay professional. But I think it was very rude that they acted in how could I say in that kind of manner. Okay, they acted in that kind of manner, and I think that's really a how can I say that's really a how can I say that was a pivot point for me because I didn't expect them to be so rude to me. I didn't expect them to be so rude. If you have a friend over, right, and they're telling you about their trip or something they did for the weekend, and then say like, oh, well, John or Joe, that really doesn't matter. Let's just focus on our homework, or let's just focus on the project we're working on. And it gets me to say, gee, did that person really act like that? Was I oversensitive? So you put it off on the shelf for a little while, and it happens again. And I learned something very interesting in the last couple of years. People, when they turn on this niceness, like this, it's almost like this niceness that's like over nice. So I'm nice, but when somebody's like over nice, and then they turn it on and turn it off, see, that disimpresses me. It really disimpresses me. So when we're thinking about conflict, it could be just somebody's own willingness to say, I'm more important than you, that this task has to be done my way, even though there might be another way. And then I have a person there that's trying to be helpful. And they're pretty much telling me how to do something. And that's a little rude. That's a little rude. So, what I want to share with you about task conflict is that it can happen in relationships, it can happen in business, it can happen in volunteering, it can happen with your neighbor, it can happen at the store. Maybe somebody's putting groceries in your bag, right? And for whatever reason, you're like, oh, I don't want I don't want the like, for example, I don't like my cleaning products in the same bags as my food. That's no big deal, right? Or I don't want the eggs in the same bucket as my milk because it could break. Now, that could be something the person's very willing to do, or they might fly off on their handle and say, you know what? Well, I always do like this. There's no problem. Yeah, but every time I do it, it always breaks when I get home. And now you're in this dynamic. So what I found is that when something doesn't work, you're better off to just let it go. So in the case of this situation, I learned that I'm not being as respected as I should be. And I also realized that when I hear these things and I hear these real nice remarks, they're not coming from the heart. They're coming from a layer outside the heart. Why? Because these kind of people are superficial. Now, don't say that to be nasty. I say that because people do this to make themselves seem more important. I think it's rude. So, what we learned today about task conflict is that when we mitigate task conflict, or when we figure out that, what's the best way to do this? What's your way? What's my way? Which way is going to make more logical sense? And we got task conflict. Okay, I understand that you want to do it this way. I want to do this way, and Jerry wants to do it this way. Why don't we try one way and time it and see how that works or works out? Let's try my way, then we try your way. We'll see which way works. And we can vote on it. How does that sound? That sounds great. What am I saying? Oh, well, my way is always better. See, when you got somebody that is already in resistance, you're just not going to go anywhere. So what I found is when you got somebody that's resistant to you, or somebody that's like rude to you, like, well, that doesn't really matter. That doesn't matter. Let's just, work on what we have to do. And I wanted to just say to the person, did you just say to me that what I was talking about doesn't matter? But I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because that's what a small mind would do. But I just made a memory peg that this is how this person is. This is how they treat me. This is how they treat a lot of people. They have to seem more important. And it just made me think that when I was believing that I might have been a friend, or I might have been somebody that they really trusted, I wasn't respected. I never had that happen to me where somebody says to me, I'm talking about a couple of the things I'm doing and all the stuff I'm working on. Oh, well, that really doesn't matter. Let's just work on what we have to do. You just said that what I told you didn't matter? How rude is that? But if I would have done that, first of all, that would have been belittling. Second of all, it would have caused conflict. Because I would have been like, did you just say to me that what I mentioned didn't matter? Well, we have to get working on it. And then you would have gotten a little bit of conflict. So I decided just let it go. But I also decided that I need to realize that this person is placating me. They say, oh, John, how you doing? How you doing? Oh, it's great to see you. And maybe it is great to see you, but they placate. They kiss up. I can smell that from miles away. But I didn't believe that was even present here. And it's because they seem so genuine all the time. But that genuineness is false. When somebody overdoes the genuineness, you can see right through that glass. Right through it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It's been a privilege, pleasure, and honor to be with you this fantastic evening here on April 23rd, 2024, which is Monday night, starting off the kick of the week. And I want to let you know that we got a lot more to talk about when it comes to conflict. There's all different types of conflict. And if we can at least understand what the different kinds of conflict are, we'll be more prepared on how to handle them when these different types rear their heads at us. All right. Have yourself a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you real soon.